We have a finite amount of time in this world, and every second counts. And so if you are doing the founder thing and you're on a podcast, you're going on a panel, you're meeting with press. And I think my biggest fear in that is I just don't want to hold up the process. I don't want to be the thing that slows us down.
Welcome to Maker's Mindset. I'm your host, Nancy Twine. This episode, I'm in conversation with Amy Liu, founder and CEO of Tower 28, a beauty company inclusive of all skin tones, skin types, budgets, and beauty philosophies. For nearly 20 years, Amy worked as a beauty executive at brands like Smashbox, Kate Somerville, and Josie Maran Cosmetics. Motivated by her own battle with eczema, Amy launched Tower 28 in 2019, making it the first and only beauty brand to adhere 100% to National Eczema Association's ingredient guidelines. Named Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year for 2024 for Greater Los Angeles and one of Goldman Sachs' most exceptional entrepreneurs, Amy continues to redefine clean beauty standards. Let's go ahead and jump in. Welcome, Amy. I'm so thrilled to be in conversation with you today. I am such a huge fan, and I'm just so glad that we've become friends through this crazy industry that we're in.
I love it.
And I've just always been so impressed with what you've been able to create with Tower 28 in less than 6 years. I mean, it's so incredible. And I know that you have a background working for some incredible beauty companies, but you decided to venture out into the world of entrepreneurism when you were actually 40. And I love that because I've met some people who feel like their time has passed to start a company, and it's so not true. And I would just love to hear more about how you got started, how you got even interested in starting your own cosmetics brand, and also why clean was important to you.
Yeah. So I have always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I think ever since I was a kid, and I'm sure so many entrepreneurs have this story to tell, but like I was always a kid who was like trying to figure out how to like make a lemonade stand or like sell my stuffed animals to my friends or, just do funny things like that. I think part of it is I grew up with a dad who was an entrepreneur. And so I watched him, and he was so invested in what he was doing. He was a general contractor, and we would go to a hotel and he would like look at the finishes and he would really pay attention to the elevators. And my mom, by comparison, was an auditor. I don't even really now know what that means, but she always worked for big companies, and she kind of like, she liked her job, but she didn't talk about it. She kind of left at night. She was very predictable. And I think I wanted that like rush of feeling all the highs and the lows and being really vested in it. And so that was always part of it. I also really wanted to work in the beauty industry because I don't know, I wanted to do something I could relate to. I think despite the fact that I've worked in beauty for so long, I'm not obsessed with like makeup. I don't feel like when I walk into a Sephora, and I don't know what it is for you, but I'm not like dying to buy everything. I don't wear piles of makeup. But I think what I'm really fascinated by is the way that we as women relate to beauty products and how they really can change the way that a woman or person, I would say, just walks through the world, and it can make them feel more confident. It can make them feel more happy. It makes me feel more confident and happy. And so that's really what I love about beauty. And the clean part was important to me because I've had eczema my entire adult life. So I've worked in the beauty industry for a long time, like you mentioned, but I've had eczema even longer than that. So around the time I was in college. So at this point, it's been a long time. Let's just say it's been a long time that I've had eczema. And I think for me, I always felt like if I had basically a broken skin barrier, I should just be even more careful about what I was putting on my skin and was going in my bloodstream. I worked at a clean beauty brand named Josie Maran Cosmetics back in the day. I was the head of marketing, and I was simultaneously pregnant at that point. And so I was thinking a lot about what I was putting on my skin and in my bloodstream. And back then, we really thought clean was like 93% natural, 85% natural. And so I tried to make the switch because I felt like that was the right thing to do. I did it with my eating too. I was trying to eat more organic and those types of things. And I think that's pretty common for people who are having kids. But I actually found that a lot of times the products I was choosing in an effort to be clean also were really sensitizing for me because those products often can have essential oils in them, which is not bad for a lot of people. But if you're like me and you have sensitive skin, essential oils are molecularly really, really small. They vary from batch to batch sometimes, and they can be sensitizing. And by the way, also not all of them, it's certain types, and everyone's just different. And so for me, I thought clean was something that I cared about beyond just being natural. It was more, can it be clean and safe for sensitive skin? And that really is the product philosophy that we use to make our products at Tower 28. The part about my age, so I wanted to be an entrepreneur all these years, but frankly, I was pretty scared. I went to, high school. I knew I was going to go to college. I went to college and I got a job in consulting, my first job out of college, which felt like a job that it just couldn't be the wrong decision, right? Like consulting's great. Then I went to business school because that seemed like the right decision. And then it just seemed like this like series of really linear decisions. And I kind of felt like I was building my resume to show someone else and to make sure that they felt like I was successful. And I had these great jobs and I never did the thing I wanted to do, which was to start my own thing. And I think the reason it took me so long is because I was just really, one, I was risk averse. Two, I think I was really very afraid of failure. And even when I ended up raising money and starting Tower 28, and I had a lot of friends invest, coworkers, friends that are the people I vacation and go to dinner with. And they would say things to me like, if anyone can do it, you can do it, which I think people like is so nice. But then at the same time, you hear that and you're like, oh, but then what if I don't? What
Right.
if I can't? And there's actually a really high probability of failure here. And I had, at the age of 40, I had 3 kids. I didn't buy my first house until I was 39. And LA's expensive. And I had golden handcuffs too. Like I was able to make a good income because I focused on my career for a long time. So the idea of taking a leap felt pretty scary to me. And essentially, I got an opportunity. A friend of mine from business school, we were chatting, and I was like, I really want to go back to work. I'd taken a little bit of time off and consulted, and I wanted a full-time job again. And he said, well, you're like 40. Are you really going to go back and get another job? You'll never do this if you do that. And I was like, well, that's easy for you to say. I don't have any money and I don't have a team. I don't have a partner. He was like, well, if you have money, you can hire people. I was like, well, I still don't have money. And he's like, well, what if I gave you half of whatever you think you need? He had sold his company and I didn't know that. And he wanted to, when you sell a company, you can buy another company and roll the capital gains. And so, and defer capital gains. And so he was my first money in. And then I raised 500,000 to start. And you're right. I think there's a lot of people that find it interesting that I waited until so long to start. But actually, I'm so grateful that I did it at the point that I did it because I don't think there's one way to do it. So it doesn't mean if you do it at like 20 or 30, that's wrong either. But I feel like even when you said it's happened so fast, right? Like that we've catapulted so quickly. Sometimes people say that to me and I'm like, yes, but I've also been doing kind of the same thing for like 22 years. I've worked in the same industry. And I just really believe there's no such thing as an overnight success. I think like the skills build upon each other.
Completely.
Yeah. So I think and I wish more people would just make sure like it's never too late to be happy.
Yeah.
We don't always get it right the first time, whether you're talking about like, I don't know, jobs, marriage, whatever it is. And like, I don't know, 40 sounds maybe older to some people, but like, it's like not even the halfway point, hopefully, you know?
Completely. And, I just am so inspired by your story because, like you said, you were at a point where, you didn't necessarily have this massive savings and you were a mom, but you really believed in what, was possible. And also this idea too that your career really builds upon itself. When I started Briogeo, I had never worked in the beauty industry. So
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, I felt like I was starting from scratch.
Yeah.
But the experience that you've had at the companies you've worked for, I think definitely helped to, get you to a place probably quicker than most.
Sure. But I would also guess, and I actually know this, that the experience that you had in your previous job, you were still able to transfer. And I think that's the thing. There's a lot of aspects about it. You had like a basis of understanding for like maybe financial things that a lot of other people don't. Or you knew how to work in a team, you knew how to navigate an organization. And so I don't know. I always think that when I tell people, like, whatever your experience is, none of it was a waste.
Right.
It all will make sense in hindsight as long as you just continue to evolve and like think about how to get better each time, like get closer to the goal.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we have in common is that we're both CEOs of our company,
Yeah.
which I think is, kind of 50-50. You see some founders that bring in a CEO pretty early on and then some, stay the course the whole time. Talk to me about why you've made the decision to remain the CEO. And are there things that you feel like you are uniquely positioned to do as CEO that maybe someone else wouldn't do as well?
I mean, I think the main thing that I hopefully every CEO's job is really to get the people, right? The team and the resources, and then to have the vision of where we're going, right? So it's like true leadership, really figuring out like where are we going and how do we get there? And then hiring the right people to get us there, which is like an ever evolving constant thing. You're right. It was really important to me to be a CEO because I don't know, it was just like something I hadn't done before and I wanted to know I could. And I would argue I still am trying to figure it out and I think I'm still evolving and learning, so I don't know that I've got it down or anything, but I think I am uniquely positioned to be the CEO of my organization, much the same way I'm sure you are, because I feel like I understand the mission. Our mission is really to make products that are a safe space for sensitive skin. And I really do care about the fact that so many people come up to me and say, I've never been able to wear makeup before until now. I've been the end user. I've been the person who's suffered from these problems. I understand what it's like to be afraid to put products on my skin, to feel worried that the products will exacerbate my skin. And I've also worked for such a long time in beauty. I feel like I really know good product.
Yeah.
And like obviously I'm sure same, like nobody cares as much as I do about the people, the team, the products, the customers, everything. So I'm still enjoying being a CEO, maybe not every single day
Yeah.
or every single moment I would say of every day, but at the end of it all, like I feel like every day I get to wake up and I have a set of problems to solve. I have purpose and I really enjoy it.
I'm really curious to know what you think are some of the downsides to being both a founder and a CEO. I think, from my experience, sometimes it's a little tricky being sort of that main business leader and also being like this inspirational visionary because sometimes the two conflict. And I'd love to know sort of what your experience has been like.
I mean, I think in a really practical way, I think one of the hard things is time. We have a finite amount of time in this world, and every second counts. And so if you are doing the founder thing and you're on a podcast, you're going on a panel, you're meeting with press, that's time that you're not spending with your team, that you're not sharing internally the vision and the leadership and being there. And I think my biggest fear in that is I just don't want to hold up the process. I don't want to be the thing that slows us down. And so I think a lot about that. It's probably one of the more challenging parts I think of what I'm doing right now is time and figuring out like when to say no, when is it worth saying yes, trying to figure out where I'm best positioned to like use my time. And I think a lot about that from like, for me, it's like in the recruiting process, it's the team side of it. And maybe I can let go, which I have, like say ops and finance,
Yeah.
which I know we're a little different in that way, but like,
Yeah. Speaking of letting go of ops and finance, you made the decision to bring on your husband
yeah,
to be the CFO of your company. And I know what it's like to have family in the business. My brother used to run our e-commerce business at Briogeo. And I want to know a little bit about what that decision was like and what are some of maybe the unique nuances you've encountered by having your husband as part of the business.
Yeah. So my husband and I, to give you some color, we've been together for 24 years. So it's been a really long time that we've been together. He is very truly my best friend. He's my person. He was always supportive of me going on this adventure and doing it. He also was very clear, though, from the very beginning. He was like, we have to have an out. Like, we're not going to put in more money than this. And you're not going to spend more than X time doing it. Right. So he was like, it can't be this like ever flowing, bank account that we just keep putting money into. Right. And I think that was really a good thing for us. He was always kind of in the background helping out in terms of just how it is in our own kind of personal lives too. Like he was always the one kind of taking the money and investing it. And then, by the way, he was also an investor, as that's his background. But I would say, I think I told you this at one point, but like our business just blossomed at one point. We had this like, they talk about those hockey puck moments, and we had one of them. And I was still doing all the really confidential things like setting up payroll for someone and like giving them their, figuring out salary and things that were wire transfers. And I just couldn't handle it anymore. And at one point I looked at him and I was like, I can't do it anymore. And so we made the decision for him to quit his job, which was well paying, which makes it hard, and have him come over. And I think, to answer your question about like what are the nuances there, the best part about it is like there's no one I trust more in the world than him. He's really smart, which helps, right? Because it's not like just like, I don't know, some Nepo baby coming in or something. Like he's really smart. Genuinely, he's really nice. We have the same values, which kind of like marriage, I think is like foundational, super important. I would say he is not really the problem. It's probably me more, where I don't know if you ever had this with your brother, but like the way I talk to him sometimes, like I would never talk to my other employees, right? And like I just, you're just like, wait, why would you do that? Like you say things that come out of your mouth and you're like, oh, that's not that nice.
Yeah, right.
And then it's also like, it's hard to turn off. And so then you're at home, and I'm assuming you and your brother didn't always live together, but like you come home and you're still talking about it around the dinner table. So that's hard too. But ultimately, it's also like the best because you just have someone you can trust. And I'm sure
So
you
important.
know what that's like. There are times it feels really lonely.
Yeah. And like you said, no one's going to really love your baby the same way you do. But I found that at least with my brother, I think he was like the closest person to that.
I always
Right.
tell my husband, so Tower 28 is very clearly like a company I started that he joined.
Yeah.
And I thought that him coming on would be like having a baby, our fourth baby together.
Yeah.
But I was like, I think it's more like I had a baby and I brought it into our marriage. And there's like, you'll never love it the same way. Like, which maybe that's not true. Maybe other couples are able to do that. But like, he does love the business and he's in it and he's committed. But does he love it the same way I do? I don't know if it's exactly the same.
Yeah. And I think also too, I mean, you use the products, you develop the
Yes.
products. It's just it's a different kind of
And how
relationship.
can he
Yeah.
have that same relationship with like our concealer? You know what I mean?
Completely.
Which is,
Completely.
by the way, very good. It is very good.
So you talked about this hockey stick growth and, being in such a competitive category like cosmetics. What is your secret sauce? How have you been able to break through the noise and truly differentiate your brand?
Yeah, I think that we have a pretty differentiated like product philosophy. And uh, let's put it this way. I don't think that the world needs another lip gloss. I don't think the world needs another concealer. The way that I think about it is I really hope to be like the modern day version of Clinique, which was my first makeup. So much like Clinique, and I don't know what their mix of business is, but we have about 35% of our business coming from skincare. And we also have color cosmetics, which is pretty unique, right? Like most brands are really good at one of those, but not the other. And they don't have the permission to do both. But we launched with both from the very beginning. So we've always had color, we've always had skincare. And I think because our view of the world is we're making products, I'm making skincare for people who wear makeup, and I'm making makeup for people who haven't been able to wear makeup. So our whole thing is around just making products that are what we call good, clean, fun. And so good means high performance, and we're actually solving some kind of a problem, whether it is maybe it's a price point issue, maybe it's like you weren't able to get your cream blush to actually last, or maybe it didn't blend or whatever it is. So we're always scouring reviews to understand what the need gaps or the concerns are. Clean for us is safe for sensitive skin. So we're the only beauty brand that is 100% compliant with the National Eczema Association, which is something I'm really proud of. We have the seal of acceptance on many of the products as well. And we also are Sephora clean, Goop clean, and Credo
Wow.
clean, right? So we have like a massive no-no list. And then we also test a lot. So for us, that means HRIPT, which the common thing with HRIPT, which is irritation patch testing, is to test on humans, not on animals. And most everywhere I've worked, it's been 50, maybe it's 100 people, but of just regular skin types. We do it on people who have sensitive skin. Then we also do the dermatologist approval. We also do something called safety and use, which is basically that same product testing on a sensitive skin person, but the way that you would use it. So instead of a patch test, it is, if it's a moisturizer, it's in the amount that you're supposed to use. And then we do cumulative irritation tests, which is the amount that you're supposed to use over a period of time so that you're using it as the instructions are stated. So morning and night over a period of time, right? So 30 days. So we just do a lot of the testing around it because my goal is that we are so careful about what we're putting in the products and how we're testing them and making sure that they're high performing but good for you so that you feel like you can trust us.
Right.
And then when you feel like you can trust, then you're just like, okay, I can shop any of these things because all of it will work for me. And then the last, so we call it good, clean, fun. Our fun is like, one, it's like the imagery and the lifestyleness of it, which is very like kind of colorful and bright. It has a real LA vibe to it, which I'm an Angelino through and through. Like I've lived here for such a long time, so I love LA. And I think of it as like a love letter to LA, but also it's price point. So like the goal was always to be entry level prestige. So I want someone to be able to shop at Sephora, shop at Goop, shop at Credo, but also be able to like carry that little bag and have that experience. But instead of paying $25 for a lip gloss, they're paying 16
Yeah.
for a lip gloss. So we do that by really, we spend as much money as anyone else does on the stuff on the inside, but we don't do a lot of excess packaging. So we don't tool, we don't own any like fancy shapes or anything like some other brands do, which there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that we can't afford it because we're trying to hit certain price points.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And so you talked a lot about testing and obviously your makeup, you're also skincare. When it comes to makeup, I think one of the things that's really complex is that for every SKU, you have multiple shade variations. So, the number of SKUs that you have are probably a lot. And I'm curious to know how you were able to create sort of that operational backbone to your company to allow you to do all that testing, to manage all those SKUs, the inventory, the fulfillment. Talk to me a little bit about that, because sometimes that's one of the hardest parts of scaling a beauty brand is being able to have strength within your operations.
So I think one of the things that really helped is that in the beginning, I did not launch any products that had color in them. So our first three products we had our SOS spray, which is our number one selling product, and it's a spray. It's a skincare product, so no color. We had a product called Super Dew, which is a shimmer-free highlighter balm, also no color. And then they also had a lip gloss, which was clear. And that was the three products we launched with. And we had the color varieties ready, but we didn't launch them because I wanted proof of, concept first. And I think because we kind of tiptoed into it first, where I got validation that people like the formula, then I can go back and I can go make the shades. And honestly, it's been very incremental. So I think despite the way, I think sometimes it's like Instagram versus reality. We started on a shelf at Sephora where we were half a shelf. Then we went to a full shelf. Then we went to two shelves. And then we went to four shelves. And now we're bursting. So, I mean, I know you know what productivity is, but we are the number one highest productivity brand at Sephora.
That's incredible.
Because we're bursting from a real estate perspective.
Yeah.
But that doesn't happen until I'm like, make the product prove to me that it's the right thing for us to do shade variants first. And we didn't pick a foundation or a concealer to do until we had kind of some money to play with. And we had a sense of to me, I don't want to go into that real estate unless I know I can earn it.
Yes, absolutely. And speaking of having money to play with, you obviously did a friends and family round. You talked a little bit about it prior to launching. And then several years in, you decided to raise private equity funding. And I think, one of the questions that I get the most from other beauty founders is, when should I raise money and how much and from whom? So How did you think about navigating your rounds of fundraising and what was really important to you?
I think it's a little bit like getting married. It's a lot like getting married, right? Like you shouldn't get married until you know why you're doing it, who you want to marry, like I think sometimes we focus so much on like the wedding that we don't think about what's going to happen in the marriage. And I think the same is true with private equity. Like you can't think of it as like it's so easy for people to get tripped up and read about like so and so got this valuation and it's so sexy and people want to almost raise because they want to say that like this person invested or whatever it is. It can't be, those are the wrong reasons to do it. So for us, and honestly, I waited, it just, I guess it was 4 years in. So it was last year. We had people inbound pretty early and I really wasn't convinced that I wanted to do it. And then I started thinking about just having, they call it like smart money versus just having money. And frankly, like we were profitable. We didn't really need to raise the money. And we did a minority round. So we didn't sell like a huge part of the company. But it was really just like I felt like I needed that extra help. And we got to a point where, listen, I think a lot about the responsibility I have when I look around like the room and I see my employees and how my son actually who you met.
Yeah, he's such a cutie.
My son, he came on this like we had a company event where we got on this like karaoke bus around the marina or it was a boat on the marina. And he at one point looked at me and he was like looking at all of our employees and he's like, "So you have to make sure these people can pay their rent every month?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Wow." And I thought about that and I was like, "Oh God." And so I think there's a bit of it where as a business gets bigger, you don't want to have the hubris to think that you know everything, that you've seen the road in front of you. So even though I've worked in organizations, I've never been a CEO before. I've never been a founder before. And so I think I met an investor that I really liked, I still like. I loved the fact that she was a woman. I loved the fact that she'd been an operator before, that she had been on acquisitive. She'd been on the M&A side of things before. And I think it was the right decision for me. But I would tell anyone to be just thoughtful about what they were going to do. Like, why are they doing it? And not to raise too early either, because then you're getting married to someone that you may not want to get married to long term, right? Which is, I don't know, I think it's probably like it is in real marriage. Like, I shouldn't say this to an engaged person, but like, what is the rate of failure for marriage? It's really high.
Right. No, completely. And I was talking with one of my other beauty founder friends who also went through private equity. And I think one of the things that was hard for her was that, there was a team that was put in place after the transaction to kind of run the beauty playbook. And I'm curious to know your thoughts on whether you think there is a beauty playbook based upon your time, working at beauty companies, or do you think that you really need to sort of customize your approach to how you build your team, how you operate your business, the decisions you make, all really custom to your situation?
I think it's both. So I guess one, I don't think it's ever been harder than it is right now to not just launch a beauty brand, but to get to scale and to stay in the industry. I think is very difficult.
Is that because of the competitiveness or so many
I
brands?
just think the barrier to entry is so low.
Yeah.
It is, now we have more suppliers than we've ever had before. I had an investor who did not invest, but I had pitched him really early. And he was like, my only issue is I could have done this and I would have already done it by now. I could have bought the products off of Alibaba and put my name on it. And I was like, that's really not the way I plan on doing this. But there are brands that can do things really turnkey, private label. I'm not saying it works, but you can. And so it's a very, very high level of competition and a very low barrier to entry, which makes it difficult, right? So that part I think is difficult. So I think the beauty playbook to some degree is the same as it's always been, which is you have to make really great products that people love and feel and need and want to incorporate into their daily lifestyle. You need to create brand awareness. You need to build brand love. I don't think any of that is different. The way we do it is a little bit different, right? So it used to be more like print advertising, TV advertising. It used to be more, instead of influencers, it used to be editors, right? So maybe the platforms have changed. I think social's changed things, but I think that at the core of it, it's the same. Meaning, like you have to create brand awareness, word of mouth, love, all of those things are the same, but the way we do it is a little bit different. I think that the way I would hire and the beauty playbook for it, I think really depends on who you are and also what kind of a brand you're trying to launch. So if I wanted to, I'm sure you know too, like there's so many brands on TikTok that like you can launch a TikTok shopping brand that is super viral. I think there's somebody who sells like, have you heard of this brand that does like pickle merch?
Yes.
And they sell like, I think like gobs of money, right? And that's all it is. It's just pickles. They're people who love pickles. And so that's one way of doing things. But like if you, depending on what you want, and I'm a big believer in just sort of reverse engineering. Like if you know what you want, just figure out how to get there and like work back from it. And so for me, like I do think about what I said to you earlier. I want to be like the modern day Clinique. I want to walk through one day. We launched it in Australia earlier this year. And I loved the feeling I got of being able to bring my products to a new, total, like the other side of the world and having people say, like, I used to like buy this on Revolve and pay for all the shipping. And I would ask my friends to like put it in their, luggage for me. And I loved that we could kind of bring products that really matter and change their skin to another part of the world. But in order to do that, I have to run things a little bit differently to get to scale so I can do that. And then I think there's a part of it where it's like, you're not going to be good at everything. I'm definitely not good at everything. And so I think a lot about hiring around my weaknesses. Like early on, I honestly probably thought I knew more than I did. And so my first 3 employees were people who had never had a job before. And I'm very proud they're still with me. And I felt like if I was able to teach them, which was true, that they could do the job, which was true. My time has not been able to scale that same way. I don't have the ability to spend that much time teaching people.
Right.
So I need people who can come in and can run. And also, what I know is limited. Like I only know what I know. And so now we're trying to really bring in people who, I mean, at its best, you hire people who are better than you. So, and can strengthen what you do so you can spend your time doing the things that you're good at.
Absolutely. And on the topic of team, I would love to know what are some of the biggest, most important leadership lessons that you've learned in your role as CEO?
I think that being a CEO is a lot like being a parent. And I don't mean to say that in a way that feels kind of pedantic, but I think the lessons are very similar. Like when you have kids, I think your kids spend a lot of time looking at you to understand what's okay and what's not okay. And I think as a CEO, you're also role modeling. So whatever your values are, it's really going to be a reflection of the way you behave and the way that you act. And so you have to really keep yourself in check. So anytime there's like, oh, I don't understand why like, things are happening this way, I'm like, usually I'm like, hmm, what am I doing? How am I? Like, I think somebody once told me, like, every business is a long shadow of its founder. And I think there's some truth to that. And so I think being more aware of what your own, so much to me of this is about self awareness, right? Like, what are you good at? What are you not good at? How do you shore up those differences? How do you make sure everybody knows what it is that you want? And I think like, and who you are and what you hold dear. So they understand like what success looks like for you and for themselves too. But much like parenthood, I don't think any of it is easy. And most of us have never, even when I get to my third kid, like, even if I've been a parent the first and second time, my third kid's different. So just because I've managed, these people and I kind of feel like I figured it out, then I get a new one and I'm like, well, you're real different from me. Right. So I don't know. I think a lot of it is just that it's like the only thing you can count on is change.
Right.
And I just try to, one of our core values is we talk about Kaizen, which is actually a term that I learned when I was in business school. And it's used in operations a lot. So the Japanese coined this term and it means basically continuous learning, continuous improvement. And so we talk about this a lot internally. Like I don't care. It's not that I don't care about mistakes, but I can accept a mistake. But we can't make the same mistakes over and over again. We have to learn from them. So I'm like a really big stickler about like, we always do postmortems. We do retreats twice a year where we always do the same exercise called start, stop, continue. And that's almost like a living suggestion box, right? Where we just hear like that whole 360 feedback. We do pulse checks from employees. And I'll be honest, sometimes those are hard to read, right? Because even if you have the best of intentions and you think you're doing, a great job, you get those and you're like, oof, that was harder to read than I thought it was going to be. And it's hard, right? Because I think as much as people think like, oh, it must be so fun to be the CEO and be in charge. And I don't know, I used to tell myself like, oh, I can't wait to start my own company so I can own my own time. And like, I don't own my time. My employees own my time. My Sephora owns my time. Like I'm in service. And that's okay. I'm privileged to be in that situation. It is complicated.
So you talked a lot about leadership within your team, but let's talk a little bit about leadership within the industry. You've launched something that has been so phenomenal and so supportive of up and coming underrepresented founders in the beauty space, which is Clean Beauty Summer School. Can you talk a little bit about what it is and what inspired you to start it?
Well, first of all, I think you've done an amazing job too. So hats off to you. And you've really like put your money where your mouth is. And more than that, I see you doing all the things. So you're also part of my program, which I very much appreciate. And you've taught classes and been a mentor, which I'm hugely grateful for. In terms of the genesis of why I'm doing it or how this got started, I think, again, I've worked in the beauty industry for 22 years and like it was really different at the beginning of my career than it is now. And I really do think that we are working in the beauty industry is like a uniquely, I don't know, I think there's some responsibility to it. We're literally creating what it means to be beautiful for generations of people, right? The images we're putting out, the words we're using help define the way that people feel about themselves. And I'm only able to see the world from the perspective that I can see it, right? So, same for you. Like, we're choosing images, we're choosing things that represent the world the way we see it. And so, there has to be room for other underrepresented people to do that as well. Otherwise, we end up with a world that all looks the same, which I would argue is kind of what it looked like 22 years ago, right? Beauty was really only defined in a pretty monolithic way, in a pretty homogenous way. And as somebody who did not look like people that I saw in pop culture, in movies, in models, in beauty, I really wanted that to change. And I still want it to change. And I think the only way that you do that is by putting people in positions of leadership that don't all look the same and that can represent that because we can't change our own perspectives, right? Like we are who we are. So Clean Beauty Summer School is a program that I started this is our fifth year. We just had our fifth year. So we started in 2020. And it was really initially in response to everything that was happening in with Black Lives Matter. So we put up a black square, just like a lot of people did. And it was COVID. And I felt really like kind of empty. I was like, oh, what else am I supposed to do? Is there anything? This woman wrote an email to hey@tower28beauty.com, which I think it's a good reminder that like people should use their voices. Like I looked at this email and she said, hey, if you're going to give out grants, can I have a grant? Because Glossier just gave out grants and I'm, a founder in like, I think she was in Detroit, Michigan. And I looked at this email and I was like, oh, shoot, I probably can't do that because I just applied for a loan and a line of credit and I collateralized my house to do it. I was like, I'm really not in a position to give money. But I thought, like, I do have experience. Maybe I can get on the call and talk to her about it. And I spoke to her for like 45 minutes. And you forget that actually, like, living on the coast, having access to community makes a big difference. And she was just like Googling things, right? And so she wrote me this note afterwards that was she was just really grateful. And I thought immediately, well, what can I do to like scale this? How can I help more people? And because all of a sudden during COVID, we were Zooming and that was a really normal thing. I started texting some friends and all of a sudden I had this program. So the idea is that we take 10 underrepresented beauty founders every year who have brands. And the intention is to take them through 10 weeks of virtual classes. At the end of it, there's a pitch day and all of it with the hopes of being able to really increase the probability of success. And I think the real win in that is not like who wins the pitch day, because someone does win the pitch day and they get like a suite of prizes that basically help with a startup. But it's really the community that gets built and the ability to every year they can come back. So say you teach a class in finance, which you have, and you're not able to digest it because you're not at that point in your journey yet, they can come back the next year. And because it costs us nothing, right? To have a virtual Zoom, or whether you're teaching 20 people or 50 people, it doesn't matter to the teacher. And so we ask those people, we give them the opportunity to come back, and then they can learn those lessons at the time that they need it. And they get to be part of this community where they can ask other people about what it means to be
So
a
amazing.
beauty founder, right?
Yeah.
And I do just think that's the way that we increase the likelihood of success. So it's been a huge, we did our first in real life summit this year, and it was maybe the thing that I'm the most proud of, I think, that I've done in my career. It was just such a beautiful experience to bring people together like that.
That's so amazing. And before we wrap, on the topic of, giving back to the beauty industry, what would you say to a founder, whether they're in beauty or not, but maybe they're, just struggling with the fact that the landscape's really competitive and, it's really tough out there to gain visibility, to gain market share, all of those things. What are some words of motivation or perspective that you would share?
Yeah, I think it's really important to, I believe in collaboration over competition. And by that, I mean, like, why not work with another brand? And like, if you're in hair care and I'm in color, like, can I give you a GWP? Can we collab on like an influencer box? Do you have some kind of people are using your products that are different than the people who are using my products, perhaps? But they're both shopping at Sephora, for instance. So are there ways that you can find other brands that are in your same space and kind of think about ways to cross-pollinate and to get better, learn from each other, and then be able to apply that? And I think a huge part of that is being like, my husband always says this, but like, go first, go positive. Like, before you start thinking about asking for a favor, offer to help someone. Because if you offer to help someone, I promise you, people are reciprocal by nature. And like, that's the way the world works, right? Like, if you help someone, and maybe if they don't help you back, that's okay too. Like, let go, right? But I think there's like, to have that spirit, I think really makes a difference.
Yeah, it's such great perspective. Before we wrap up, we're going to pivot into 5 Fire Facts, which is a rapid fire interview series just so that our audience can get to know you a little better and in a fun way.
Sure.
Are you ready?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Must have Tower 28 product.
I mean, this is probably no surprise, but our SOS spray is our #1 selling product, and I really do use it minimum of 2 times a day, morning and night. Sometimes I use it in the middle of the day. Like I said, I've had eczema my entire adult life, but honestly, it sits in a really small window now. So it's never flary like it used to be. And I believe it is because
I knew you were going to say that one.
Yeah, it's not a shocker, but it's honestly true.
Go-to stress reliever.
I love a good massage. And if that's not available to me, which that feels indulgent to do too often, I just also really enjoy going on a walk. I mean, it doesn't have to be with someone else. It's oftentimes not. It's like my dog and a podcast like yours early in the morning.
Favorite travel destination?
I've been wanting to go back to the Maldives since my honeymoon. And my husband promises that one day we will. You should go for your honeymoon. It's amazing.
Amazing. Best business advice you've ever received?
Other people say this too, but I really do think it's true. Like, competition is the thief of joy. And I think it's so easy people compare a lot, right? And so to say like, oh, this person got to this point faster, or they're doing this, or whatever it is, we all are on such a different journey.
Completely.
I think it's really distracting to think that way and to spend too much time sort of worrying about it. Like, listen, we look at competition too, but I try to be like, I don't know, like if you wanted to launch a blush and I launched a blush, I'm not gonna.
Right, exactly.
I don't
They're
feel
gonna
competitive.
be fundamentally different.
Fundamentally different.
Top wellness tip for entrepreneurs.
Oh, I think like just being able to protect your mindset, I think is huge. I don't think people realize how important mindset is. And like, I promise you, whatever you're going through, if you're not well, it's like I don't know, that whole airplane, like oxygen. If you're not taking care of yourself first, you're not able to take care of anyone else. I know that is true. And even if you don't think you're being crazy, you're probably being crazy. I've worked with enough founders to know that like that's true too. So you have to take care of yourself. Whatever that means for you, you have to take care of yourself.
Completely. Such good perspective. Amy, thank you so much for being here. This was so fun.
Thank you for having me. And also thank you for being a friend. I really do consider you to be a mentor.
Thank you. Same here. To stay connected with Amy, the Maker's Mindset community, and me, check out all of the details in the episode description below. And check out Spotify or Apple Podcasts to hear a few bonus reflections from me on this episode. And don't forget to subscribe to this series, leave a review, and share this episode with your community. Thanks so much for tuning in.